And when it comes to Israel and Gaza, what is how much special operations forces do we have on the ground there? Like working, I know we have quite a bit, but what have you learned about what's going on there?
Well, when we published our story, which, like I said, was towards the end of last year, so I can't tell you what, we haven't reported on what's happening in May of 2024. But,
okay.
But JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, deployed what I understand to be its standard sort of task force headquarters with associated elements from the special mission units like Delta Force, like SEAL Team 6, with the sort of slices, as they would say in the military, of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment and other units. And they went to Cyprus, to a military airbase in Cyprus, to stage. Now, in terms of on the ground in Gaza, I'd be surprised if there's any U.S. military on the ground. When we were reporting the story, it didn't appear to be that there were any. Of course, the U.S. military has, most of these organizations have liaison officers in Israel, and just as part of the normal course of business. And I think, the number of U.S. personnel in Israel was plussed up. But at the time that we reported the story, was plussed up, was increased slightly.
Got it.
But at the time that we reported the story, it didn't appear that there were, entire units being deployed to Israel. That may have changed. I don't know, but when we reported it, it didn't appear to be the case.
Right, but they're special operators though, like lots of
special operators. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so your recent story about the CIA extrajudicial killings in Kenya, when did this come about?
So the killing that we sort of focused on was in 2012, but it was just earlier this year that a court in Kenya found it to be an unlawful killing, and it was conducted by a Kenyan unit called the Rapid Response Team.
Right.
But that was a CIA-trained and essentially created organization. So it's an organization that all of our reporting suggested did the bidding of the CIA.
And why was this set up by the CIA?
Because in the years after 9/11, as part of the so-called global war on terror,
right?
The CIA had a program. It was called the Counterterrorism Operations Program. I believe it's still going. And it basically allowed the CIA to create surrogate units, proxy forces in a range of different countries. The ones that we were able to identify are listed in the article. There's one in fact, we couldn't even get the source to tell us which country it was, but it was in South America, in the tri-border area of South America. And the other country, I believe, was I don't have the story in front of me. I think, and Jack wrote it, and I sort of edited it and added some quotes from one of my former CIA sources, but it wasn't on this topic. I believe it was Thailand, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe you can fact check that while we're on the air.
Yeah. What should he search for to find that?
The Kenyan story that we
just type in Kenya CIA high side. You'll be able to find it.
Yeah. And
I think you had it up a minute ago, Steve.
Yeah, and somewhere in there it says that there are, in addition to Kenya, these teams, I mean, we think the teams were stood up in a good number of countries, but the couple that we were able to, if you click on that, using
There you go.
if you've got Danny's login,
Well, yeah, you're gonna have to. It's all right.
I do not.
So the CIA set up this rapid response team in Kenya, and the purpose of it was counterterrorism operations.
Yes, yep, and basically the Horn of Africa, especially Somalia, has been a real focus since 9/11, in the years after 9/11 of both the U.S. military and the intelligence community in terms of their counterterrorism operations. There was a great concern over Al-Shabaab, the Somali terrorist organization, which
And Al-Qaeda, right?
yeah, well, they were Al-Qaeda. Al-Shabaab ended up as the Al-Qaeda sort of franchise in Somalia.
Oh,
And, so the United States using Kenya as a sort of a platform, because the relations between the U.S. and the Kenyan governments are very close, and between the security forces in each country and the intelligence communities are very close. The Kenyans also have very close relationships with the British as well.
aren't they tight with China too?
I don't think they're as tight with China as they are with the United States and
Really?
the UK. Yeah.
'Cause I know that they're doing the whole Belt and Road thing, and China's investing a ton of money in those countries.
Yeah, I mean, some in Djibouti, certainly, on the other side of Somalia. But, they were using Kenya as a sort of a platform, but also they wanted to both strengthen the Kenyan security forces in case this sort of Islamist trend surged south into Kenya, which it started to do, and at the same time use Kenyan forces as, in Somalia as, quote unquote peacekeepers, but, to a degree those were forces that were going to get in fights with Al-Shabaab. And all of that meant that the CIA had a sort of from its perspective, a vested interest in developing units in Kenya that did basically what the CIA told them to do.
So they were training guys in Kenya
and in the United States. Yes, yep. They brought.
They brought U.S. guys
yes.
over.
In fact, the photograph that you've got on the screen there is, I believe.
Okay, a couple white guys.
I believe those guys. I think that photograph might have been taken in the United States. Yeah.
You can't confirm nor deny, though.
So,
wow. So we brought guys from Kenya over here to train them.
Yes.
Wow. Like train them at CIA, like the CIA's training headquarters.
Well, I mean, there's various training facilities that they can use. They can use CIA training facilities, and there's obviously other, military training facilities that are far off the beaten track. So where these guys got trained, I can't immediately recall.
Right.
But the CIA has, in addition to its well-known farm facilities, it's called the farm down in Camp Peary, Virginia, which is a fairly sprawling site.
I've heard stories.
Yeah. But it's also got a site in the Carolinas as well. And I suspect probably others, in different parts of the states.
So their essential goal was just to capture and take out as many of these terrorist people as possible in Kenya.
Yeah, I mean I suppose that's right. It was to use these guys to go after terrorists that the United States and or the British and or the Kenyans had developed intelligence on to suggest this guy is an Al-Qaeda guy or an Al-Shabaab guy or what have you, and in Kenya, unlike say some other Western countries, there was clearly a feeling that there would be fewer questions asked if these guys were just killed. What ended up happening, though, in the case that we wrote about, was that one of the guys that they did this to, one of their targets, turned out to be the wrong guy.
They got it.
A human source, made a mistake, led them basically to the wrong apartment. They kicked in the door of the apartment. The guy and his wife tried to, escape through a bedroom window, and they killed them in their backyard. Well, they didn't kill the wife. I'm sorry. They
shot the husband.
They shot the husband, and he collapsed onto the wife. And she played dead, so they didn't kill her. Like I said,
and were these Kenyan CIA proxies that did this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. This was the RRT, the Kenyan,
RRT.
the Rapid Response Team.
Okay.
And
then now, 12 years later, they finally got awarded something like $60,000 or something like that, $60,000.
Yes, which doesn't sound like an awful lot. Apparently, $60,000 goes a lot further in Kenya than it does in the United States. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Kenyan court declared the killing illegal and awarded the widow roughly $60,000.
Mm. So is this team, is the CIA still actively working with this RRT group in Kenya right now?
To the best of my understanding, the best of our understanding, yes.